Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Sorry. So Gabe, so as some of you may know, Gabe has another podcast called
I do.
Nowhere Men, the Nowhere Man Project by the Script Busters.
Yep.
So Stephen and Gabe are have watched the show Nowhere Man, which is a show from the 90s, and they're kind of going episode by episode and talking about it in great detail, and it's very interesting, and you guys should all go listen to it.
Yes, you should. You should also watch the show if you would like to. It is available on YouTube for free.
Yeah. I've not yet. You may have shown me the first episode a long time ago. Maybe. But I don't think I've ever actually seen much of it other than that.
Yeah.
So I'll probably end up going and watching through just because just some of your guys' commentary on it. I'm just like, all right, I gotta see this.
Sure.
But anyway, There's something Gabe said on the show made me laugh really hard. I'm not going to say what it is. You'll have to listen to it.
The reason this is getting brought up is because right before we started recording just now, Jeff kept playing a sound clip that I had said, and then I made a joke about it. And so we were just, we were having a good time.
Yeah. So, I had Gabe cut that audio clip for me so I could put it on a soundboard.
If you want to know what we're talking about, we're not going to say it here, but you can go and you can listen to Nowhere Men, the Nowhere Man Project, episode 16.
Yeah.
What was the timestamp? 1:52:56.
Yeah.
I'm looking in our group chat.
Right. Yeah.
Fun times.
It's just a silliness. But no, it's been very entertaining. And it's a lot of content. Like the episodes are very long, but you guys don't
freaking long.
There's no lulls in the conversation. It's just
sure. And here's the thing. I don't know how much I've really brought this part up on InterPartyConflict, but we don't really go off topic on that podcast. No. When there's a 4-hour long episode, it is 4 hours of content.
Right.
Pretty much everything, even the stuff that seems off topic, is being brought up to illustrate a point about what we think in the show itself.
Right. Yeah. It's like they're on topic tangents, but they're but it's still, you're still talking about, making script writing, that, that kind of thing. So it's all relevant and it's all interesting. So,
yeah. So all of that aside, how are you doing today, Jeff? I'm
doing okay. Just kind of hanging out with Skylar and the dog, and it's
cool.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like I still have those moments of, oh my gosh, I have a dog, because it's just,
I'm very happy for you.
I mean, I've wanted one for so long, and it's it's been 10 years since I decided it's I'm gonna get a Chihuahua, and then 10 years later I finally have one, and it's she's adorable and I love her. So cool. I don't know. I just spent most of the day just cuddling with my dog, and it made me very happy. So
I feel like for the last 2 months, pretty much all of your how are you doing todays have been I got a dog and it's great.
But yeah, it's she's great. I'm sure it's like the honeymoon phase kind of thing. I'm sure at some point it'll be whatever. But I mean, I'm all, not that I'm gonna lose interest in my dog. It's my dog. She's I'm a dog person. I've been a dog person without a dog for so long.
Yeah.
And there's not really much else exciting going on in my life. So
sure, I can understand that.
We got fall plans getting ruined by potential new variants and things like that. So
yeah.
So we're just kind of taking it a day at a time here. But all in all, pretty good. How you doing?
Cool. I'm doing pretty good. Not really much on my end. There keep being rumors that my work is going to shut down for another little while because of the chip shortage or whatever.
Oh, sure.
But every time there's a rumor, it ends up not being true. So
right. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Anytime there's a rumor, it's not true. And then when something does happen, they tell you the day before.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows? I guess one thing that might be is podcast adjacent, I guess. Lisa had me make her a miniature the other day.
Oh, ooh, interesting.
Because I think I mentioned that I printed and painted a couple miniatures for Justin from Crit Academy last month for his birthday. And so I was busy doing that for a few days. And then one day Lisa came in, she was like, what do I do if I want to paint a miniature? And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like scrambling around. Like, where's the, okay. What's the, where's the chart that shows like what the, what the procedure is for this? So I had her sit down and go on Hero Forge, had her design a miniature. I still have a bunch of vouchers from when they had their Kickstarter a while ago. So I've got like 10 more miniatures I can get. And, she of course made something ridiculous. She didn't make like a normal person. She made like a skeleton woman riding a wolf with a rat in one hand and a waffle iron in the other.
Wonderful.
And so sure, whatever works for her, I guess. So I printed it and I just put some primer on it today, and it looks fantastic. So sometime soon she will get around to painting that. It's just weird. Like, what the heck? Well, why the heck does Lisa want to print a miniature? But I'm not going to look this gift horse in the mouth. I got to let her do it.
She's crafty, like it's she just wanted a new craft, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got going on. I'm working and printing stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and get into this episode?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I want you to imagine, Jeff, that one day you're watering the lawn.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something you do, but you're out there and you're watering the lawn one day when there is a flash of light, and then you hear tires squealing.
Uh-huh.
And you look out into the street and you see a silvery car screech to a halt in front of your house.
Oh man.
And you're like, oh my goodness, what it is? You like, I don't know, you lift up your sunglasses and you see that the doors of this car, like they flip up, and then out from inside this car steps a gigantic red scaled figure. And you recognize this person. It's your neighbor that moved away.
Oh yeah.
Except they've got on like silvery clothes and they've got like a weird visor thing instead of sunglasses, and their hair is all crazy. They've got shoes that like inflate or deflate or something, whatever the heck those do. And they run up, and your neighbor, he grabs you by the shoulders, and he's like, Jeff, you got to come with me.
Whoa, what's going on? Where?
No time to ask questions. And he runs and he climbs back in the car and he says, come on.
Okay.
So you get in the car, and then the doors close, and your neighbor says, all right, Jeff, we have to go get some treasure. And do you know where we can find some treasure, Jeff?
Where are we going?
As your neighbor, I never gave your neighbor a name, and that's fine. Your neighbor hits the gas, the car starts, shooting off. It's wildly reaching 88 miles an hour, and your neighbor turns to you and says, we're going to the Dragon's Hoard. So today's magic item was submitted by Dustin via Discord, and the item is Kyphos Vessel of Timeless Spite.
Ooh.
This is an artifact. So big thumbs up from me. I love artifacts. Those of long age and further sight can plan for any contingency and oft remove a threat to their power before it can form. Kyphos, the archmage of temporal misuse, saw the birth of his ultimate rival and decided that hour should never come to pass. To this end, he imbued a shard of meteorite with immense power. The wielder of this shard could speak the command word, and be they of strong mind, which I believe requires an intelligence check DC 25, can steal a selected hour of time from the perceived timeline. All events that occur within that hour never occur, and all other beings have no memory of the missing time, but may notice its absence. Should the wielder fail in their attempt, an hour of time is taken, but not the intended hour. The harder they failed, the further out from the intended hour the stolen hour is taken. Once the shard is used, the stolen hour may be viewed by touching it, the hour may be returned to its rightful place by speaking the activation word in reverse and again thinking the time back into the right slot on the timeline. Another intelligence check DC 25. Again, should they fail, the hour is placed back, but in the wrong place based on how hard they failed the check.
Whoa.
The vessel will protect itself if it is damaged, throwing its attacker to a random time and jumping itself an hour into the future.
What? That's wild.
So, yeah, absolutely an artifact. This is one of those things that is kind of outside of mechanics. I feel like although there is an intelligence check involved, you're not really going to be thinking about mechanics while you're doing this. You're going to be thinking about, well, now what happens? How do I rework the campaign now?
Right. Yeah. This thing's wild.
Yes.
I like it, but it is wild. Putting an hour back in the wrong place.
Yeah.
That's such a weird concept, but I love it.
It is.
Like, yeah. How would you even?
Yeah. So I've got two ideas for how parts of this can function. The first thing I got to ask is, does this affect the whole world / the whole universe? Like, if I'm on the opposite side of the world during the hour that is removed, do I also have that hour removed, or is it just some sort of a localized effect?
Right. Yeah. Is it just the hour of time in which, like a localized event or something like that? Like if there was like a catastrophe that happened in one specific town or something, can you take away that hour that it happened in, and it's just localized to that town?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, because if you take away an hour or two for one specific reason, and then like on the other side of the continent, you're taking away an hour of something else that was really important that happened.
Yeah. I think we had a discussion a long time ago regarding the time stop spell, because although the text says that time stop just speeds up the caster, the name and also the fact that Elminster is immune to it somehow implies that you're literally stopping time. And I think we had talked about, like, does it stop all time everywhere, or is it a localized effect? So similarly, I'm thinking with this, either one is fine. I just think it's something the DM should have in mind if and when they use something like this. But I was thinking to add to the spookiness, let's say this is a localized effect. Let's say it's like, I don't know, it only affects like a square mile or something. And then let's say you stumble across someone during this hour. Like, you were outside during you're outside that mile radius when an hour got removed. Yeah. And you happen to like pass into the area. What happens? Do you just suddenly wake up and it's an hour later? Or do you walk in there and everyone is gone for that hour? Do you walk in and everyone's frozen in place? Is everyone just staring slack-jawed with a blank expression on their face for that hour?
Yeah, I don't know.
Those are the things I'm thinking about. Because all of these are horrifying and could be great hooks for an adventure.
So the part about it defending itself,
let
me see. Throwing the attacker to a random time to a random time. That's ridiculous. So it throws the attacker to a random time. All right, when and where? Although I was thinking it would be neat that if like the stolen hour is like contained within the shard, right? So like the attacker gets sucked into that hour, and it basically has to relive. It has to be within that hour of time over and over again.
I like that.
Like like a time prison sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like, it's just collecting all these people that are just like being, forced into this whatever event is happening in an hour. Let's see. Steal selected hour of perceived time, and all events that occur within that hour never occur. So it is actually taking something out of taking an event.
So presumably you could take someone's birth out of existence, and that person just never got born.
Right. Yeah. So it's exactly. You just take out the hour that somebody was born, and then it just never happened. So yeah, that's pretty wild. I like it. That's cool.
It's like it's not even, you can't really even fathom exactly how powerful it is.
Right. Oh man, it could be like a lost piece of information that the players really, really need, and it's hidden in that hour of time. Because like it's in the description is like they don't have memory of the time, but they notice an absence. So like there is some way to know something's gone. Okay. So like I feel like it's in some way that like there might be a way that somebody knows about like a missing chunk of time, like somebody's kind of like figured it out.
Sure.
So like yeah, it could just be like there is another artifact that only exists in that, that disappeared during that hour of time or something that was created during that hour.
Sure.
And like the players need that artifact in order to, solve a puzzle or defeat the big bad or whatever. And so they have to find this other artifact and like put that hour back in place. But yeah, maybe it gets, maybe it's like this catastrophic event that creates this artifact, but then they failed to check and it's happening right now.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. This is why this thing is wild, and I think it's really cool.
Here's the thing. Like, I don't think everybody needs to do this when they make an artifact, but in the Dungeon Master's Guide, at least, every artifact lists how the item can be destroyed.
Oh, sure.
And I think the simple answer is you have to use this in order to remove the meteorite hitting the Earth from existence.
I use the stones to destroy the stones.
Well, yeah, pretty much. You have to use it in order to destroy itself, I think would make sense. Either
right.
that or like you have to, I don't know, take it to the end of time and then attack it, sending it forward in time past the end of time. I don't know, something weird like that.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think simple enough is you can use it to destroy itself, but
sure.
But maybe you have to like maybe there's like some extra consequences to it or something.
Sure, yeah.
Like the person doing it dies along with it or something.
Yeah, that works. So I think this is a really cool item. It's definitely, I think, works better as a plot hook rather than something the players can actually use. Because what do you even do?
Right.
How do you adjudicate everything that this thing can potentially do? So
yeah.
Anyway, so I think that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard today. Thank you, Dustin. That was a really cool item. Once again, that was Kyphos Vessel of Timeless Spite. Very cool artifact. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Jeff, if anybody else wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre Retirement Village, or questions for our main segment, how would they get those to us?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com or join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
That's correct. So as we said last week, we're not doing our giveaway for the Crit 3 drawing anymore. However, we are doing a physical drawing for 3 handcrafted leather goods from Maumee River Leather. So to recap those, we have a leather-bound journal that we're going to be giving out. We have a box, a dice box, a miniature box, a dice tray, whatever you want to use this box for. A box that is disguised to look like a leather-bound journal. And then we have a leather book cover that fits any of the core 5th edition D&D books. So we've got those 3 things, and we're going to be giving those out to 3 lucky winners, one each of the next 3 months. I believe I said our first drawing is going to be on September 14th. So the way that you can enter this, normally I would ask you, Jeff, but we just started doing this, so I'll recap it for everybody. Mm-hmm. If you want to enter this drawing for any of these 3 things, you can enter by writing us a review on the platform of your choice, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Podcast Addict. I think any sort of platform that will let you leave a podcast review. Heck, if you can leave it on Yelp, leave us a Yelp review. I don't think you can, but leave us a review somewhere, anywhere, and then take a screen grab of it, and then email it to us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. Be sure to specify which of the 3 things you want to win. Only one. We're not going to let anybody win more than one. If you win the first one, you're taken out of the runnings for the others. But I'm going to keep them as 3 separate lists because let's say you don't want the book cover, for example, we're not going to give you a chance to win the book cover if you don't want it. So leave us a review, send us a picture of it, and then let us know which of the 3 things you want to be in the running to win. So like I said, we'll be doing the first drawing for those on September 14th. And then the next one a month after that. I don't have the exact date on hand. So, and then the month after that. So yeah, please check our show notes to see pictures of these things. As of this recording, I still don't have a photograph of the book cover, but I do have I physically have the journal and the box. So yeah, so go ahead and do that. Leave us some reviews. If you've already left us a review, awesome. Just send us a picture of it, and you can leave us, if you want to leave us multiple reviews, it won't get you you won't be in the running more than once per thing, but we'd still appreciate it, So yeah, thank you everybody who is hopefully going to leave us reviews, and good luck to everybody in the running.
Yeah, good luck.
Do you love Interparty Conflict? The show you're listening to right now? Yeah! Then check out their Patreon at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. You can help support the show and get tons of bonus content too. Access hundreds of outtakes, dozens of short stories, periodic updates about the behind the scenes of the show, personalized media, a monthly Roll20 game run by Gabe himself, and more. Every month, green and red tier patrons get access to the bonus podcast InterPatron-Conflict, where Gabe and Jeff cover a wide variety of topics. Join right now and access the most recent episode, which might sound a little something like this. I don't know at what point that stopped being a thing, but now he is always in the bed, especially ever since we got a new mattress. He is always there. He is always taking up so much space. He is always pushing me out of the bed. Every single night I have woken up, since we got this new mattress, every single night I have woken up and fought with the dog for space.
Sometimes we go sleep in the living room.
Yes, sometimes.
Once I went to go sleep in the living room and Gabe was already in his chair asleep.
Yeah.
So it was, so you got wasn't that within the first week of you guys getting the mattress?
Oh, he loves this new mattress.
So you guys had got a brand new mattress, and there was a night where it was just Superhand sleeping in the bed.
Yep.
The important thing is he's happy.
Once again, go to patreon.com/InterPartyConflict to help out the show and access all that bonus content today. And then one more quick thing. Check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy, critacademy.com. Crit Academy is a great podcast where Justin, Ian, and Austin make new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They're an actual play podcast on the network. They've been coming out with more episodes after a brief hiatus. Also check out D&D Character Lab, which Garen and Dan made characters every week and debated whose characters were better. And then check out The Kind GM. It's another advice podcast. Both of those are on hiatus, though. So check out all of those podcasts. We've got some great stuff on this network. Enough of all the admin. Let's get into some questions, Jeff.
All right, our first question comes from Fouchard1520 on Reddit, and they ask, have you ever encountered a deity in game? As a presumably mortal GM, how would you go about depicting divine wisdom?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is pretty self-explanatory, but for the second one, so they're saying, let's say the players meet a deity. How do you get across maybe the gravitas and or the omniscience or whatever that you would presume a deity to have? How do you make yourself sound and behave like a deity when you yourself presumably are not a deity? You're probably just a person on Roll20 or whatever. How do you make the players feel like they're talking to a deity and not just talking to a person?
Right.
I guess let's get the first part of the question out of here first. Have you ever encountered a deity in a D&D game, Jeff?
Yeah, I've killed one.
Yeah, there is that.
I've fought one, and then I think we talked to another. I can't remember.
Yeah, shoot. So I was actually I feel like we've definitely, if not you, then I feel like I've definitely encountered deities in games, but I was kind of blanking on which ones and when. So the example you were referring to is Kyus.
Yeah.
You guys fought the god Kyus at the end of the Age of Worms campaign. Sorry, spoilers for the Age of Worms campaign that probably nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
So there's that. Was there anybody else in that campaign that you guys, any other deities that you met? I know you met Tensor, but that's not a deity. That's just an archmage.
He's just an archmage. I want to say, I feel like we interact, or at least maybe Steve's character interacted with his deity just because he was casting miracles so many times.
Did Steve have a deity, though? I thought he was a deity-less cleric.
I can't remember.
Yeah. I guess the takeaway here is that encountering deities might not be quite as monumental. If it's not as monumental as you expect it to be, it's not the end of the world, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Don't feel like the entire campaign hinges on whether this encounter with a deity feels like an encounter with a deity.
Yeah.
So in our Roll20 game that we've been playing, I think by the time this episode goes out, by the time this episode goes out, our next session will be in a few days. So, but in the session that we just did last month, I actually did have the characters meet a deity, and I actually do have an idea that I'll come back to when we're talking about how to get across, deific status to the players. But other than that, I'm really trying to think of whether I've actually encountered like a current deity in another game. I know that when I was playing as my character Ichi, we fought an ex-deity and we killed him. But that, again, that's that's different. Splitting hairs, I know, but that is a bit different than actually encountering a deity. I had my cleric never actually met his deity, but I think at one point he was given a vision of her face or something. Like he was given like a vision of what his deity looked like.
Right.
Really trying to think of whether I've personally encountered a deity or not. I don't think so. I feel like the answer is yes, but I just can't think of any examples.
So, as far as the next part of the question, one thing that came to mind, and it's just because I watched the movie somewhat recently. I watched the movie Dogma.
Okay.
And like I hadn't seen it in years, and again, like for whatever reason, a scene popped up in my head.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I wonder if it's online, and I think I just watched it on like YouTube or something.
Sure.
So God is played by Alanis Morissette.
Yep.
At the end of the film, I guess spoilers. I don't know. It's a.
The movie's so old.
It's a Jay and Silent Bob movie.
Sorry.
Like whatever. It's you go watch it. It's entertaining. Like it's a
pretty good movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. But like throughout the whole movie, there's the character played by Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
Who is the Metatron, who is the voice of God.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was thinking, like maybe that could be a way to do it. Like they don't like they're in the deity's presence,
mm-hmm.
but they still have to communicate through somebody else.
Sure.
That way the DM doesn't have to play the deity directly. Sure. They can still it could still be this sort of
inscrutable, beyond understanding, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to give it a specific personality. You just it is, this is the deity. Here it is in your presence. You're taking damage over time just by being in its presence.
Yeah.
Ask your questions quick,
Yeah.
No,
I really like that idea.
That kind of, so that way, that way that you don't have to take direct control of it. You don't have to have, like I feel like that is something that will be difficult because once you give a character a voice and you start talking to the players in it, like the players can then they're talking to you as a person, so they're gonna start joking around with you and stuff like that about it.
Sure.
I feel like they'll take the deity less serious if it's through the lens of the DM.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally get it.
So put put a middleman in there. You have a different NPC that is another powerful being, but it's something, it is a being that's there to act as a translator, basically.
Yeah.
So in the movie, the whole idea is that a single word heard by a mortal through the, like if God spoke a single word and the ears of a mortal heard it, their head would explode.
Yeah, and Alan Rickman has a line like, "We went through 3 atoms before we figured that out."
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, I think what you just said is actually far better. Like, if there was one single piece of advice to give, if you are going to be putting a deity into a game and you want to retain that gravitas, you just hit the nail on the head. You don't actually interact with the deity themselves. You interact with a proxy or multiple proxies, and then you don't have to worry about them. They're interpreting it just like you would, Yeah. So if they make a mistake, it's not the god. The god didn't make a mistake. The proxy made the mistake.
Right.
So that's a great way to do it. I think that the more alien and inscrutable you can make them, the better, possibly to an extent, the better. Yeah. Because if you view them and they're basically just like a normal person, maybe that's what you're going for. More on that in a second, but that can make them feel less like a deity and more just like a normal character. So if that's not what you're going for, then that can, if you want shock and awe, then that is going to diminish the experience. So in our Roll20 game, I did have the characters meet a deity in the world. We made this world using Dawn of Worlds, so it was a lot of fun playing this game.
Yeah.
And I just had the players go to another location. It's another city, and this city was founded by the goddess of hospitality. And so they get there. When they arrive, there's this big part, like everybody was waiting for them, basically. Somehow, this entire city knew that they were going to be getting travelers were going to be showing up. And so when they show up, everybody's ready to receive them. And then they're immediately they immediately went to the dining hall where, all the people are getting dinner ready for some big feast. And then they get in there and they meet the goddess. I named her Ilona, but they get in there and she immediately puts them to work, like cooking. So she's like, okay, you go and, do this, just stir this pot for me. So they go and they stir the pot for her. Now you do this. So I was purposely trying to not make her seem like this, crazy, inscrutable, all powerful being. She was just kind of like a friendly grandma or whatever, but there was more to it than that. Here's a thing that I got this from Gary from the duckfeed.tv network. We had him on as a guest a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I was listening to one of their podcasts recently. I think it was Watch Out for Fireballs, I think. And he said something that he does in his games. He said that he had the players meet a deity recently. And one thing that he had happen was when they arrive, when they meet the deity, have them all make like a perception check or something, they realize that they are kneeling. They didn't intend to kneel. They didn't even, like, the DM doesn't even say your characters get down on their knees and kneel. They just realize they've been doing it all along and they didn't even know they were doing it. That's one of those things that when I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is perfect. That absolutely gets across that this is something bigger than the players. Bigger than the characters, possibly bigger than the players. Who knows, whatever. But that really got that across because something just happened to your characters and you didn't even realize it was happening. Like, that's how big an alien this is.
Yeah.
So that's something that you can do, just a little thing to get across to the players that there is something divine about this character. Don't overuse it, of course. Don't, when they give a quest, don't tell the players like, oh, you have to do this. You're compelled to do this or whatever. I guess you could do that, but that doesn't really sound interesting to me. If you could, like you were saying, have them go through a proxy like the voice of God in Dogma, maybe have it be that they hear the God's voice, but they cannot comprehend what the God is saying. Or they hear it, but they hear pictures. They hear color. They hear flavor or something, something that is, again, just wholly alien to them as mortals.
Yeah.
That just shows that this thing is so beyond my understanding. I wouldn't even know how to begin to translate what this God just said to me because I'm hearing the color blue. I just heard a square. So things that make them just seem beyond the player's understanding, that's definitely a thing. And then, because it is, here's the thing. Let's say you do have the god talk to them, and then they say something, and then the players, maybe you said it wrong, or you didn't really think through what you were saying, and then the players start to think about it, and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't really make sense. Then, after the fact, you have to kind of try to do damage control and try to figure out how to make what you previously said make sense. So it is good to have at least one layer of removal from what the god says so that there is plausible deniability if something does turn out to not be accurate, not be exactly what you meant.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another thing. You, as the DM, kind of are a god of sorts. And so if you say something and it ends up not being true, it's true now.
Right.
Let's say you accidentally mentioned the wrong city or something, like that you mentioned the city on the coast is Neverwinter, not Waterdeep. And then the players go there and, oh no, it actually is Neverwinter. Neverwinter is here now.
Sure.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what'd you say goes,
Yeah. So that's, again, don't overuse that. And that's kind of like a last resort type thing. But yeah, I said it. It's true. It happens. If one of the players tries to call your bluff, hey, I'm a god. It happens. But I do also think that it's important to remember that gods in a setting like D&D or like in the Greek pantheon or whatever, gods are not all knowing. They are not all powerful. They are very knowing. They are very powerful, but they don't know everything. They can be wrong. They are biased.
Right.
They are allowed to, and they are likely to say things that further their goals, not necessarily the player's goals. And they might be wrong about some things. Again, it depends on what kind of a god you're trying to get across, what you're trying to have that god do. But especially if, I don't know, a god is like the big bad evil guy of the campaign, then presumably the god is going to be saying things that are contrary to what the players want and what they're going to do. If the god says, I will destroy you, and then the god doesn't destroy them, that's fine. It doesn't have to be true because the god isn't all powerful. Otherwise they would have just snapped their fingers and the players would have died. So I don't know. So if you can get into the mindset of this isn't like capital G God, this is a very, very powerful being.
Yeah.
That's a different mindset than than it would be otherwise. So if that helps you get across, you don't have to have this gravitas. You don't have to have this inscrutability. It helps. It can help. But it's not the end of the world if the god doesn't come across as anything more than a really powerful being. Because that's what they are. They are just a really powerful being in the context of D&D.
All right. Our next question comes from Zand231 on Reddit. And they ask, plot armor for your players, yay or nay?
Yeah, so plot armor, for anyone not familiar, is typically in a TV show, movie, whatever, a work of fiction where it's not outwardly stated, but it's kind of assumed or just understood that certain characters can't die.
Right.
They bad things can happen to them, but they're never actually going to be in any real physical danger because they're the main character, for example. Or children in stories often have plot armor because the child isn't, even the child's in danger, they're not actually going to die because, who kills kids and stuff.
Right. I mean, if you want your story to be marketable, you can't kill kids.
I guess. Yeah, pretty much.
All right. You just you can't, or at least, you can't kill kids on screen,
Sure.
You could blow up a building that probably had some kids in it, but
yeah,
you can't kill the kid on, in the scene.
Sure. So basically what the question is asking is is it okay to have a campaign where it's kind of made explicit that the player characters aren't going to die? Or if they do die, it won't be permanent.
We've talked about how we've had campaigns where we have free lives, basically.
Yeah.
We'll have a true resurrection that's just if we die, we come back the next round, but like, well, maybe I only have like one of those.
Sure.
So like, I guess that's like that can kind of be like a type of plot armor, you know? It's like you are kind of just giving your character, your players an extra life just because like, I like, which I kind of always like that, because there are sometimes when there's just those really bad rolls that it's like, oh, that was very anticlimactic, but now my character's dead.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, so it is nice to have something to be like, okay, no, maybe not, instead of going, oops, rewind, let's not do that because that was kind of lame. You put it in there at the beginning. Hey, like, you guys are sort of like the chosen ones or whatever kind of thing.
Sure.
So you get a free true res, don't waste it.
Sure. So I'm kind of the opinion that death in a tabletop game is the easiest and cheapest form of tension.
Sure.
When you're playing a game, if there is danger of your character dying, that's a lot of people assume that that's all the tension that you need. And for a lot of people, sure. Yeah, that probably is all you need. But it's not the only thing out there. I've mentioned in episodes before, I think the last time I mentioned it was a long time ago though, so I will mention it again. There was a guy I used to play D&D with, his name was Johnny. And whenever he was running, because we would switch up DMs, whenever he was running, if you failed a save, you hoped it meant that your character was dead, because he had so many other ideas for fates worse than death for your character, and you would regret a failed save even if your character was still at full hit points, because you knew whatever just happened was worse. Case in point, I failed a save. Next thing I knew, the rest of my party got killed, and I started a war. Like, I understand death is part of that. The rest of most of my party did get killed as a result, but that wasn't even for a while. I started a war because I failed a save. I didn't want to start a war. That's why it was an effective an effective punishment.
Oops, all war crimes.
I guess. So, like, I get it. It's harder to come up with situations where death isn't the worst thing that can happen. But I really think it's important that more DMs learn that that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
I guess D&D kind of lends it, because D&D in particular has such a focus on combat that it's easy for everybody to just assume, okay, that means that the worst thing that can happen is that I die. I will have lost combat. That's the worst thing that can happen. But does your character have a family? Does your character have people that are relying on them? In real life, if I died, that would suck. I feel like it would suck more for my family and my friends than it would for me. I wouldn't care. I'd be dead. But I don't want my wife to have to be, to have to live without me. I wouldn't want my wife to have to then deal with all of the fallout of my death. So, although I don't want to die, I especially don't want to die because I don't want to leave behind my absence for my family and friends.
Sure.
So that's one thing, if let's say your character has a town that is like they're from a town that is like suffering from a plague, and the characters are on their way to go and get a cure. Destroying the cure could be a more effective and more treacherous punishment, or more treacherous tension builder than just killing the PCs. If one PC dies, but the cure for that disease or whatever is brought back, that's a better outcome than the alternative, than if the players all survived but the cure got destroyed. I just recently played a couple of the Resident Evil games where there's this zombie outbreak, and then one of the games there is a vaccine, and then at one point one of the bad guys shoots the vaccine, and you're like, well, shoot, now what the heck am I supposed to do? That was worse than if my character died. So you have to, as a DM, you have to build a game where there is more going on than just the player characters. If all that happens revolves around the player characters, if all that happens is just, did the player characters get some cool treasure or did they not get some cool treasure, then yeah, death is going to seem like the ultimate punishment. But if there are other things that the players want other than just survival, then there are things that you can say your characters aren't going to die. However, that doesn't mean that all of the tension is gone, because there are other bad things that can happen, and presumably the players don't want those other bad things to happen either. Let's say the player characters don't die, but the orc horde comes and kills everybody in town. That might be worse. Mm-hmm. Let's say, here's the thing. Let's say all of your magic items get destroyed.
Oh my God, no, that's exactly. The worst. That's the worst.
For some players, that is a worse fate than death. So my point is...
Take me, leave the items, it's fine.
My point is, it's hard to run a game where there is still tension even if the player characters can't die. But it's possible. If you say from the beginning, your player characters probably are not going to die in this campaign.
Yeah.
You can still have tension. You just have to work harder at it. I was even watching a YouTube video recently from, what is it? I think his name is Luke from the DM's Lair. We had him on as a guest a couple of years ago. And his episode was all about how, like, combat has to be deadly. If it's not deadly, none of the players' actions matter. None of their decisions matter. You know, if there's no chance of a TPK, what's even the point? And I'm sitting here like, are you saying the only bad thing that can happen is a TPK? What games are you running where the only concern on the player's mind is, are we going to TPK or not? And don't get me wrong, I've run games like that. I've been in games like that. But how can you say with a straight face that the game doesn't matter if there isn't chance of a TPK? There are so many more options you can put out there. And I'm not trying to say he's doing anything wrong. Like I said, I've been in that space before.
Sure.
But here's one thing. I hope Jay doesn't take this the wrong way, but whenever I'm playing a game with Jay, we're playing our Pathfinder game now, in games I've played with Jay in the past, I rarely feel like my character's life is in danger. Now, Jay, if you're listening, please don't take that as a challenge.
No, God,
I promise that is not a challenge. I have a great time whenever Jay runs a game. It is awesome.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That's not
your character has almost died several times.
Well, that's a good point. In this particular campaign, maybe this isn't the greatest example, but even when my character isn't in danger of death, I still have a great time, and it's not because, like, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not going to die, I'll go do whatever. No, like, I think about, what would my character do in this situation? I overplay my character's fear a bit, because my character doesn't want to die. If my character dies, whatever, I'll make another character. It'll be fine. My concern isn't my character's survival. My character's concern is my character's survival.
Yeah.
So when I'm playing, I mean, this isn't, our listeners haven't been privy to what happens in our games, but I often make a big deal of my character being afraid of what's going to happen because I've almost died several times. Again, as a player, I'm not really concerned about my character dying. It might happen, it might not. But that's not what's causing the tension for me. The tension is caused by, I want to succeed. I want to finish this dungeon. I want to see all the cool stuff. So, plot armor is not a problem as long as the players are invested in what happens in the world, I guess. You can... I don't know if I ever made it explicit, but in our Age of Worms campaign, I don't think I was ever going to kill off your characters. Maybe if you guys did something really stupid. But that, like, you guys were still invested in the story. I was still invested in the story because it's more about, you want to get through this cool story. You want to see all these cool things that can happen. You want to get to the end of this conflict. Death is only one of the many things that could have caused tension. So, like, I wish more DMs would get out of the mindset of death being the only conflict.
Right.
Death is one of many bad things that can happen to a character. So stop acting like it's the only bad thing that can happen to a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And maybe everybody out there, maybe these theoretical people I'm mentioning, maybe they've just never played in a game where there were worse consequences than death. I mean, like, aside from playing with this one guy, John, I've never started a war as a result of a failed saving throw.
Right.
But it happened to me once, and now that changed my perspective on all of this. I'm like, I died? Okay. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness it wasn't something far worse. So, I don't know. I just kind of ranted for a long time. But like, guys, there is more to D&D than just whether your character survives or not.
Mm-hmm.
Involve the character's goals. Involve the character's objectives, their wants, their needs. If your characters have more goals than just survive, then there's a lot of you can play off of those goals. If there's something threatens one of their goals, that is a conflict that can still come up even if the characters have plot armor. Yes, your character survived, but at what cost?
Yeah. Okay.
Think about that.
So plot armor.
Yay.
Yeah, sure.
For me, I mean, go for it.
Right.
It'll be harder. You'll have to do other stuff to create tension, but go for it. Nobody likes when their character dies. Nobody likes having to shoehorn a new character into an existing campaign. So just set that part aside and just focus on making the conflict elsewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure though there are plenty of groups out there that like to treat D&D more like a hardcore mode in a roguelike game or something.
Sure.
Just kind of
sure.
Once the character's dead, they're dead. You move on to the next one, and that's perfectly fine if that's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah. I mean, if you like it, all the power to you. But just don't act like someone else is crazy for giving their characters plot armor.
Yeah. Try not to like make fun of people who play in games that don't have a high death count.
Sure. Sure. And there are DMs out there who do pride themselves on having killed X number of players.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, that's all. Hey, again, all the power to you. But that's not something that interests me. I'm never impressed to hear that a DM has killed however many players.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Like if it was like a particularly like cool and dramatic death or something, like, tell me about that, tell us about that at for the funeral pyre,
Yeah. There you go.
But like unless that's just what everybody wants to do in your group, like, I feel like the starting the war scenario is more fun than I rolled a dice and now I have to make a new character.
Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing. Ichi died several times in that campaign. He always came back.
Right.
I don't really have a great story for any of his deaths, but I always have that story of him starting the war.
I mean, that by itself is plot armor. So like plot armor in like a show or a movie or something like that. Plot armor could just be like the character gets resurrected.
Could be.
It's not necessarily like they never die. It's that like death is not a consequence for them.
Sure.
So I mean, like just there being raised dead spells is kind of plot armor in itself.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah, to a point. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I have no problem against giving your players plot armor if that's
sure.
If it's going to mean the fun continues, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess plot armor is cool. If you don't want plot, if you want the players to, have to die and then make new characters, that's cool too. It just depends on the campaign. There's nothing inherently wrong with plot armor, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It can work. It's just more work. It's just harder to do.
Right, yeah.
All right. I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today. We do still have our social media questions, though. Our last social media question was, do you own any special edition source books? If so, which is your favorite? Do you recall if you had an answer, Jeff? Do you have any?
No, none of the books I own are the special edition. Although I've toyed with the idea just because the cover art is always pretty cool, and I'm like, oh, that looks nice. But I don't know. I haven't bought a physical book in a while, so
yeah, I know what you mean. And I have a special edition version of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and the Mythic Odysseys of Theros, and I haven't really read Mythic Odysseys at all, so Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is my favorite. We just got a few responses over on Facebook. We just got one. Jake from Brute Force and Ignorance says, oh, I have quite a few. My red and gold Pathfinder 2e books look absolutely regal on the shelf. My limited box set of Swords and Wizardry, an OSR clone of original D&D, in the vintage faux wood grain box is delightful. Though not a special edition, I also have a physical copy of the English translation of Ryutama. I believe they only printed 3,000 copies. That's pretty cool. All good stuff.
Yeah.
Over on Reddit, Gamerjack says, I own most of them except for the core books and Xanathar's Guide. Honestly, the only reason I get them is that they're the same price as the regular books, and my friendly local gaming store always sets one aside for me. My favorite cover art is probably Eberron, but the color and shininess of Icewind Dale is beautiful. Also, the new Fizzban book cover looks incredible. I don't recall seeing any of those myself, so I'll have to look those up and see what those look like. We got one on Twitter, and that's Carl with a K, says, I do not. I had the standard edition core books, and now my sense of completion won't let me get special edition of anything else because it won't match what I have. I hear you, buddy.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, that is a thing. Yep.
Yeah. And then over on Discord, we got a couple. Stiltskin Koopo 84 says, no. Collins B says, a couple. I bought the special edition Descent into Avernus book, which just has a nice cover, and I hardly use it because I'm mainly on D&D Beyond. However, my favorite all-time book I own is the Kickstarter special edition Sentinel Comics, the role-playing game core rulebook. That's a mouthful. Bound in high-quality leather with embossed foil ink on the cover, as well as 4 ribbons sewn into the binding for keeping tabs on pages I frequently reference, along with color-coded page ends for easy reference of where the chapters are. I followed this game from its inception, and it's quickly become one of my favorite all-time tabletop RPGs, so this book is a great commemoration of it. And Collins put some pictures of this book too, and it's really cool. I think that giving multiple ribbons for bookmarks, that's really cool. Having the chapters be color-coded, that's really cool. If D&D came out with special editions that were like that, I would get the special editions.
Yeah.
Lone Wolf Nate says, not yet. I'd love to eventually own them, but with a wedding to plan and a honeymoon after, I can't afford the extra expense right now. Well, I don't think I realized Lone Wolf Nate was engaged, so congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
But yeah, I totally understand that, especially with additional costs and stuff. If there is additional costs, yeah, no worries from that. Deborah Soar says, 2, the 5e Eberron book. It had better art, much better art, and the Stars Without Number highest quality printing from DriveThruRPG. # worth. It's amazing though, was super expensive, but worth. Yeah, and that was, I believe that was everybody. So thank you everybody who wrote in.
Yep.
So that was our last question. Our next question is, have you ever encountered a deity face-to-face in a tabletop RPG? So like I said, I fought an ex-deity, but I don't recall if I ever encountered a current deity face-to-face. And then you guys encountered Kyus.
Oh, right, yeah.
Aside from that, I'm not sure. Did we ever encounter anything? Did we ever encounter anything in Jay's game? In Jay's Eberron game? I know we fought the demon that was in the Silver Flame in Jay's Eberron game.
Right. Is the
Not
Silver
sure if that
Flame
counts,
itself a deity?
Kind of, yeah.
So maybe, I guess, kind of?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
and then there was like the little girl that is like one of the highest level characters in Eberron.
Yeah, that's not a deity, though.
Right. But she's sort of like the vessel of the deity or something, right?
Sure,
Or
sure.
something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, the lesson from earlier is just like, if an encounter with a deity is not the biggest thing that ever happens in the campaign, don't worry about it. It's fine. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see if any of our listeners have encountered such.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll do it for our questions for today. So before we close out, let's wind down, let's relax, let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have come before us, who have given their lives that we may have a better world to live in, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre was submitted by Karen's Little Helper on Reddit. And they say, my character survived a boss fight on his last legs, only to be killed by someone in the party who failed a will save and was temporarily possessed by their evil intelligent sword. She didn't use the sword often, but had for the tough boss fight. So, yeah, That sucks, I guess.
That's rough.
Yeah. So I guess let's raise a glass in memory of Karen's Little Helper's character as we say, watch out for friendly fire. Clink. All right, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook. We're on Reddit. We're on our Interparty Discord. We're on Twitter at InPartyConflict. Check those out for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. And if you do leave us a review, send us a picture of it by the 14th of September, and you can enter into the first drawing that we're doing that day. So get those in. If you'd like to support the show monetarily, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is a YouTube channel where you could watch us play video games.
There you go. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of the great people over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time...
Gabe, you just failed a will save and now the podcast is over.
Oh no!
And you started a war.
Oh no!